Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take good care. The Myth is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe for every update. The film begins with Meng Yi, a powerful general during China's ancient Qin dynasty, and Meng Yi was assigned the task of escorting Su, a Korean princess, back to China as Qin Shi Huang's concubine to strengthen diplomatic relations. And as soon as his eyes met her, he was captivated by her beauty. And then suddenly, one of Su's escorts was hit by an arrow. General Choi and his army announced they would take the princess to her rightful home and make her his bride. And then they attacked the royal chariot with fire and arrows. And then one of General Choi's men took the car again, but Meng Yi pushed him away. And in the process, the car almost overturned and fell off the cliff. And then Meng Yi tied the rope to him so he wouldn't fall. And then General Choi tries to persuade Su to come with him, because becoming the concubine of the Emperor of Qi would be like a surrender of their country. And then Choi offers to fight Meng Yi for the princess and his life and attaches himself to the falling car. And then Meng Yi finally wins. Choi tells him to save Su as he clings to the car. And then the chariot fell with the princess, so Meng and Yi jumped after her. And then they cling to each other as they fall into the river below. And then suddenly Jack woke up from his dream, hugging his pillow tightly like Meng Yi did with the princess. And then he drew back his vision in his diary, noting that he had been having the same dream for 3 months, and in it he was still a former savior and a beautiful princess. And then his friend William called him to visit. Later, when the two started talking, Jack asked why William returned to Hong Kong. And then he opens a video call inviting Jack to join his anti-gravity research project. And then William invites him to find a rare material and create a weightless field. And then Jack doesn't understand why he was invited, saying he's just an archaeologist. And then William said that he knew something and it might help him, because Jack wrote a paper about his discovery, which might reveal the secret of the mysterious ancient phenomenon, and hidden. And then but Jack said that his discovery of Daesar May was based on a legend. And then William asked him to trust him on this, and Jack finally agreed. And then they travel to an ancient temple of Prince Daesar in India, where many worshippers pray to a saint who claims to be able to fly. And then they saw with their own eyes that he was stealing, but Jack was not convinced, so he went into the temple to investigate. And then inside they found a floating coffin with a sword next to it. And then Jack deciphers the ancient carvings on the coffin and learns that on a trip to the Qin Empire, Prince Daesar brought treasure and women as gifts. And then in return, Emperor Qin offered him one of his concubines and asked him to choose, but he refused when the prince chose his favorite, and Su. And then instead, Emperor Qin gave him a painting depicting Su and the Qin star gem. And then meanwhile, William removed a strange black color and a rock from the statue. And then he accidentally fell in a state of weightlessness, and the field supporting the tomb, the sword and the saint were flying. And then luckily, Jack moved out of the way just in time to avoid the heavy stone coffin and the sword falling on him. And then the coffin opened and Jack saw a hidden picture and a picture of the princess he had seen in his dream. And then a vision occurred to Jack. And then the artist had difficulty portraying the princess because she did not smile. And then her servant remarked that she had not smiled since she entered the palace. And then when Su saw Meng Yi arriving, she smiled brightly at him. And then his vision was interrupted by William as the guards arrived. And then the guards attacked them for trespassing, but he skillfully maneuvers himself and William out of danger. And then Jack managed to hit one of the guards and corner the other. William suddenly knocked down the guard, and he took the sword with him, identifying himself as such and borrowing it for protection. And then the fallen saint pointed at them as they left the temple, and the devotees rushed after them. And then they ran to a cliff, where William got a helicopter to take them out. And then William managed to get on the helicopter, but rocks were thrown at them and the helicopter. And then it was too dangerous to fly close, so they had to leave Jack alone on the cliff with the sword. And then Jack jumped off the cliff and fell into the river. And then he emerged from the water, wearing his armor as General Meng Yi, as he searched for the princess. And then he found her unconscious, floating nearby, so he brought her to shore to dry her and heal her wounds. And then she regained consciousness, and he immediately apologized for not protecting her. And then suddenly they were attacked and captured Su. And then they threatened to kill her if he did not lower his sword. And then she commanded him not to do it, as she wished, and that he should live. And then as he lowered his sword, the soldier took the opportunity to stab him. And then he killed 2 soldiers with his sword, but he was still seriously injured and unconscious. And then Su takes care of his wound. And meanwhile, Jack lost consciousness and drifted downstream until he was rescued by Samantha, who found him, and with the help of her elephant, Laksham, they brought his body back to shore. And then he soon regained consciousness, and Samantha took Jack to her uncle, a Kalarapayatu and master. And then Jack apologizes for the trouble he caused and is given the sword back, but he explains that it is not his and only came to find answers. His answer will be given after a duel. And then during the fight, Jack remembered his duel with Prince Daesar in his previous life and quickly recovered his fighting skills from his life and as Meng Yi. And then he asked the master if he believed in the past and life and explained that he had dreamed of a former general and a princess. And then he tried to ask more, but the boss explained to him that only he could find the answers he needed. And as Meng Yi and OK-Su spend more time together throughout their journey, she develops feelings for him. But Meng Yi, while also having similar feelings towards her, took a step back, reminding her of her goal of becoming a concubine for the benefit of her people and fulfilling her destiny. And he asked her to live for her people and him. And she finally gives in and agrees to live, but only for him. And meanwhile, Samantha tells Jack that the police are chasing him, and they run into the village and escape. And they try to blend into the crowd, but were quickly discovered. And Samantha helped fight off the police chasing them. And they soon find themselves trapped on a machine, but manage to escape. And Jack turns off the device just before the trapped protection pins are severed. And then Samantha put him on a boat that took him to China, and Jack promised to return to see her and his master. And after extensive research, William and his team concluded that the strange black rock was anti-gravity material and a fragment of a meteorite. And they also discovered that if the light emitted from the stone was blocked, it would no longer be effective. And Jack returned home safely and met William. They understood that the sword must have been from the Qing dynasty, and he donated the sword to the National Museum of China as a national treasure. And this makes Maggie angry because this is her foundation and it funds William's project. And Jack and William argue over who should legally have the artifact. And however, Jack reminds them that this is China and a national artifact. And then Maggie takes William to meet the professor in Ku, who has sponsored him all these years and is the leader of a criminal syndicate of grave robbers. And Professor Ku urges William to continue working with Jack because it will make him a great scientist. And meanwhile, in ancient China, Emperor Qing fell seriously ill, and the immortality pill was the only thing that saved his life. And however, it was stolen by rebels during transport and returned to the emperor. And Man Gi overheard that if the emperor died, his concubines would be buried with him, so he demanded the immortality pill and himself back. And the imperial council objected because the emperor would be defenseless if he left. And Meng Yi proposed leaving with only a small cavalry detachment. And before leaving, Meng Yi said this to OK-Su. He left and reiterated his promise to protect her. OK-Su vowed to wait for her and came back. And Meng Yi chose a small group of soldiers and went with him, but they all pledged allegiance and went with him. And the soldiers ambushed the guards escorting the pill and following orders from the traitorous prince and prime minister. And Man Gi finally arrived and gave the prime minister as well as the royal ceasefire decree, which he ignored. Fighting ensued, and the so-called rebels were soldiers led by General Man Kayat. And Meng Jie found Meng Yi in battle, told him that the prime minister wanted him dead and offered to protect him behind his army. And the prime minister fired at Man Gi, but only hit his horse, Black Wind, slowing them down. And Meng Yi delivered the pill to his deputy and Nangong Yen, and ordered him to protect OK-Su. And meanwhile, William awakens Jack, who apologizes for their previous argument and agrees to return the relic. And he gives her a framed photo of OK-Su and tells her what he found about Jack and his dreams of waterfalls and tunnels around Xian. And they went to a waterfall some distance from MT, and 200 miles away, and discovered a cave behind it. And unbeknownst to Jack, Professor Ku and his men are following him and William. And Jack went to the top of the waterfall, jumped down and entered the cave. And he found a loophole and reported it to William. And then Ku and his men create an opening using explosives, knocking Jack unconscious. And the flying OK-Su finds him, and he regains consciousness with OK-Su next to him, mistaking her for Meng Yi. And she got him out of the car. She shows him the frozen army, and the two fly around Emperor Qing's tomb. Nangong Yen saw him and attacked him, believing him to be an intruder until OK-Su told him to stand down. And at last he recognized him and apologized for his attack. And meanwhile, Ku and his men find out the loophole and where Jack is, believing he is now dead. And Ku jumps off the cliff and realizes that there is a zero-gravity field. And at the same time, Nangong Yen explained to him and Jack that he had brought the pill to the emperor, but the emperor's council had ordered him to drink it to ensure its safety. And they also forced OK-Su to take it, making them both immortal and condemning them to prison and the Qin emperor's mausoleum for eternity. And Nangong Yen asked what happened to Meng Yi and after he left with the pill. And after Black Wind's death, Man Gi alone faced the prime minister and his forces. And battle broke out, with Meng Yi killing and many soldiers, after which the vizier faced him and alone. And with Meng Yi weak and bloody, the prime minister risked killing him by beheading him. And OK-Su and Nangong Yen need help to understand that the man they are facing is different from Meng Yi. And suddenly, the entrance to the tomb exploded, and Ku and his men appeared. And Nangong Yen confronts them. Ku deduces that he is immortal, and Nangong Yen attacked them to prevent them from going deeper into the tomb. And at the same time, Ku approaches OK-Su and asks him for the immortality pill. And Jack orders Nangong Yen to protect OK-Su while he fights the others. And Ku corners OK-Su and drags him to Celeste and the palace to find the pill. and then Jack stops them and fights Ku. And then during the fighting, William accidentally disrupted the balance of the terrain after taking away a piece of meteorite, and then he caused the tomb to collapse in on itself, and he called Jack to help. And then Jack asks Okesu to come with him while Ku goes to the palace. And then William drowns himself in mercury, telling him he must get out because he is not a grave robber, and asks Jack to complete his research. And then he gave the black stone he had acquired and the Indian temple. And then Okesu finally realizes that he is not Meng Yi and says that she will forever wait for honesty and Meng Yi, believing that he is still alive. And then Jack uses the black stones to fly out of the collapsing tomb. And as Ku approached the pill, Nangong Yin caught it as they fell, and they both perished. And then Jack emerges from the bottom of the falls alive, but tired and alone. And then the film ends with Jack returning to his boat and with a published copy of The Myth, a book in which he writes about his adventures and experiences, and which he dedicates to his friend My William. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.